Welcome to the show, guys. Hey there, business owners, directors, and marketeers. In today's show, I'm meeting Martin Peters from Xtatio. I'm Lucas, your host as always, and I want to tell you a little bit about Martin before we jumping into the questions. So, Martin is the founder and CEO of Xtatio. He comes from a economics background with a concentration in management and marketing from Wharton. And before founding Xtatio, he was working for Microsoft and the World Health Organization and a lot of other interesting places. He was, for example, an associate partner at McKinsey as well. So he has a lot of interesting sort of experiences that brought him to the point to build up Xtatio, and that's what we want to learn all about today. So Martin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lucas. Nice to be here.
Very, very cool. So tell us about Xtatio. What is it all about?
Xtatio, in a nutshell, is to advance the performance of sales teams through 360 feedback.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? What is a typical experience that a salesperson would have then?
Yeah, so basically what we discovered is that most salespeople do not receive any insights or feedback from the customers that they are interacting with. Or if you were to ask a salesperson after a meeting and would ask, hey, how did that meeting go? They would say, I guess it went okay, or I don't think it went so well. And the moment you probe deeper and you would say, well, what went well or what didn't go well, they would have a hard time articulating. What we provide is a tool that's given directly to the sales professional, the sales representative, that they can generate a quick form with that customers can respond in under 60 seconds during the meeting or immediately after. And what's interesting about this type of feedback is it gets translated to the sales competencies and sales stages that a salesperson is familiar with and uses. So it's not just about, hey, great or bad communication. It's around how was my active listening and qualifying the lead and understanding what the needs and wants are of this customer. Just how well did I do that relative to other things I did and or other people who are using this app. That's essentially what we do real time. We say 360 because there's also peer function, and you as a sales professional are always asked to provide an assessment of the same session yourself to test, does your score align with the score of the customer? How self-aware are you, and are there any blind spots that you may be facing along the sales competencies or sales stages?
Very cool, very interesting. Have you seen any type of impact on sort of the overall sales process? Because it's something maybe unusual to send for many salespeople, I would assume, to ask for a feedback immediately after the meeting, but it potentially could be enhancing as well, I'm assuming. So what is your experience around that? This experience of reaching out to the customer immediately or potential customer immediately after the meeting and get that feedback. Some experiences that you could share?
Yeah, it's a good question. We did a pretty big project this summer with the Jaguar Land Rover, the car company down in South Africa with 5 dealerships. And this is also a question we get. I think one thing that's interesting is that on average, research has shown that 70% of people will respond if you make a personal appeal to feedback. We had 63% during that same time, which is about 5x of any email NPS, Net Promoter Score type of email that you would be sending out after. So that was the first one. In terms of the impact, also quite strong in the sense of, one, qualitatively, of course, people felt, hey, I had better insights, both on the individual level, but the management level. But we also ran an experiment. We gave 20 sales reps the tool, and the other 20 did not get the tool. These salespeople, in the months before the Xtatio tool, sold 4.1 cars per sales rep using the tool, or 4.0 not using the tool. Those numbers went up for the people using the tool from 4.1 to 4.7, so 14%, but dropped actually, because August is quite a difficult month, for the people not using the tool from 4.0 to 2.5. So now we had a discrepancy of 89% of higher sales of the people who were getting the feedback, asking each customer in the interaction and responding sort of real time or in their next customer interaction. And we had the group who didn't use it. Now, mind you, correlation doesn't imply causation, but we did try to control for prior months also that there would be no impact around, well, were these actually better salespeople? No, they weren't. In July, they sold the same amount of cars. So we see both an impact on sort of the actual performance, on the development of the person, but thirdly, also the customer experience. A customer is getting ultimately a better experience, especially through a repeated interaction process, or any of the new customers that are then walking on the parking lot that are then interacting with this given salesperson.
Very, very interesting. Maybe two follow-up questions on this. What type of questions would a typical customer then usually receive? And what would be the medium that they would receive those questions through? Because you might just meet that person the first time.
Yeah, good questions. Let me start with the second one. The customers don't need the app. They can receive this link and personalized message via WhatsApp, SMS, email. In South Africa, specifically, just to keep talking about the specific pilot, WhatsApp was the most common medium. And if they didn't have the phone number of the customer, it was easy to punch in. So customer would get the message real time, click on the link, it takes it to a link, and then the results get played back into the app that the salesperson has. In terms of your first question, what type of questions? So there are 20 sales competencies and 4 sales stages. Sales stages from identifying a lead, qualifying a lead, demonstrating product value, and negotiating and closing. Those are the 4 stages, and then there's 20 competencies. So a question maybe if it's a first-time customer, they're all rated on a Likert scale of 1 to 7, strongly disagree to strongly agree, 4 being neutral. A question maybe, for example, had a good understanding of my needs, or addressed my concerns and doubts, or also things such as was friendly and accommodating, but things that relate directly back. What's interesting is with some of these salespeople, what they actually found out is that the product knowledge or competitor knowledge, for example, how effective were you at addressing my concerns vis-a-vis the competition? Let's say I'm trying to buy a Jaguar Land Rover and I'm also shopping for Porsche or Mercedes, whatever it may be. Their ability to answer that for some of them didn't rate as highly. But now they know, hey, I can go back to my trainings and learn about that knowledge. So the next time I'm asked, I can talk about the benefits of my product vis-a-vis the competitions. Or in our case, we also provide coaching. We were able to have one-on-one interactions, sort of like this right now, to go a bit into detail around, hey, what else could you do to address those from a functional perspective?
Awesome. Really, really cool. Maybe last question on the product itself. You mentioned a sort of an offline use case, if I correctly understand, in a car dealership, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yeah.
How does it translate into an online case where somebody runs an online demos, like a lot of, we have a lot of SaaS people listening. How does that translate into that use case?
Yeah, so I think what's important is that there is a type of personal interaction. It doesn't matter whether it's on a call, via a web demo, for example, or with an audience. That doesn't matter as long as there's some person-to-person interaction. And we see the effectiveness is about the same because we've tried different scenarios also with some of the other companies we're working with. The most important thing is that you make a personal appeal, that I ask you, Lucas, at this call, for example, hey, Lucas, I'm always trying to provide, let's say, a helpful podcast to your listeners. Would you mind answering a few questions to help me make sure that I'm doing well and I can continue to improve? You most likely, if I put you on the spot, would say, sure, Martin. You're now psychologically also hooked in, right? And I've asked you sort of as a human to human, if I now send you this thing, which takes me less than seconds real time, you are highly likely, or as I said, about 70% of the time to then actually also fill it out. So SaaS-based, as long as you can make that personal appeal to another human, you will get that high response rate. It doesn't need to be in person, offline.
Very, very cool. Actually, one last question, because I'm very interested in what you guys are doing there. Is there something specific that you found for people to be more likely to reply to those questionnaires, or this element, something that maybe your product offers that makes it more likely that somebody responds?
Well, good question. What we see from the data and talking to salespeople, timing is critical. So we've had salespeople tell us, this is sort of anecdotally, more than 90% of their responses were received within the hour, meaning that to get a response rate, you need to send it real time. If I sent you that form an hour after this meeting, you're much less likely naturally to respond than if I send it to you now. Even if you don't actually respond now, but you receiving it now is critical. And the second thing is, of course, the appeal. There were people, and we support this function too, who like to use this link and put it into an email they're sending the client anyway as a follow-up. Yep. But there's 2 problems with this. Well, maybe even 3. 1, it's not real time. 2, it actually gets lost in the content, right? It's in messaging, it's all about simple, one major thought, and now you suddenly have 2 or 3, and you have the classic, oh, at the bottom there's a link, could you also fill this out, please? those things don't work. It's the same reasons that many of these email types of feedbacks receive the response rates that they receive.
Yep.
So those were two things that we saw that did make a difference.
Super interesting. Makes it really clear why this might be different than in this use case. Very cool. Okay, so I'm curious to learn a little bit about the company as well. So could you tell me what would be a typical user journey? You said, for example, you're working there, I think with Jaguar, you said?
Yeah, exactly.
And Jaguar. How would a typical user find you guys and sort of end up being a client? Do you have maybe some channels that are outstanding for you guys to win clients? What is the user journey of somebody starting with Xtatio?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's interesting in a sense that feedback, the way we're using it, is not something that people have thought about before. So it's not something that they're actively looking at. For example, if they were to buy a CRM tool like Salesforce.com, they would go to Google, they would punch in CRM tool, they would ask friends. But we're actually providing something that serves a need that they have, but that they haven't thought of before. They haven't thought of the solution. They've sort of thought of the problem, and they're addressing that currently via trainings and other mechanisms. So with that in mind, the way we're currently growing is one, actually through sort of networks and leads that we have and talking to people in the sales organizations, understanding their needs and then realizing, hey, this is something that could help me. Two, also our online presence. So right now we're in a phase where we're really trying to build our online presence and brand identity and make people aware of the link between feedback and performance or development. And then we usually have, not usually, but people will reach out or references via references. For example, the Jaguar Land Rover person is a connection of a friend of mine. My friend had told this person about this. This was something that she wanted to address. So she reached out and said, hey, I heard about this. This could actually be useful in helping me also understand my teams better. She's thinking from a managerial level. And that's how we came into touch. But it's less of a, I'm searching for it, and we sort of pop up. We almost have to create the awareness of what we offer and the benefit first, and then have people reach out. We, of course, hope as we build this, that people become aware of feedback in a sales setting and will then also start reaching out.
Very cool. I think you're in a situation where probably a lot of founders find themselves if they're sort of tackling a new problem or coming with a very new approach. What did you learn about this sort of, let's say, this challenge of telling somebody maybe that they have the problem that they haven't precisely thought about yet, or they have been thinking about it in a very different way, as you mentioned with training? Like, yeah. What did you learn and sort of make people excited and focused on that problem as you have been discovering it?
Yeah. I think at the highest level, it's been very important for people to sort of realize this themselves. What do I mean by this? Is in qualifying them, it's been very important to, one, understand what are actually the things that you're struggling with as an organization. Two, what are you doing about it? And almost all sales organizations will tell you that they are always, dealing with sales challenges or conversions, hence also this podcast, right? Conversion is super difficult. But second, sales is probably one of the most underappreciated functions you have. So when it comes to development of people, right? These are people who have hard KPIs, hard numbers. If they don't meet them for a long enough time period, they may be let go, right? It's a very difficult environment and there hasn't been much to improve those. So those are two things that usually pop up. And then it's been key to basically make them realize that the current tools that they're using or approaches aren't meeting their needs, right? So, hey, if what you're doing so great, have your attrition rates changed? Has your sales performance actually gone up? Can you tell me what your customers actually thought of your last 5 interactions? And then, of course, people say, no, okay. Well, then I would say, well, how would you go about doing this? And then the product sort of presents itself as a solution at the end. But I think key or learning has been for me to ensure that the customers get to that point themselves, that they realize I need a solution now to this problem, and what I have been doing actually isn't good enough. Yeah.
Very cool. No, really answers the question. You mentioned there that you guys building up more your online presence. Could you tell me a little bit about the website currently? What role would that play in your sort of overall setup at the moment?
Yeah, I think the website is maybe even the most important. And I know you'll probably ask me about learnings later. I probably underestimated just how critical a website is in a B2B environment. We're currently in a phase until Christmas where we want to establish a solid foundation of brand identity and lead generation before we start scaling that. Mm-hmm. That has meant that we have started generating content, blogs, reviews, posts, and people, of course, then start going to your website, or even before meeting, they go to your website. To sort of understand what do we do, how credible is this company, right? B2B, it's all about credibility and brand identity, and realizing there, hey, this actually plays a huge role in cementing our place as a business for those that have heard about it, or for people who are curious to learn about our business. And I think here, this is our number one priority in marketing right now, to build out our third version of the website, and also link it to SEO, SEA, right, search engine optimization, in order to make sure that, especially for next year, as we start scaling, that our website actually helps us generate new clients, but also, as I said, cements or confirms the value that people believe we may bring when they go to our website.
Really cool. And what metrics then do you think are helping you at the very moment to see, okay, is the website on the right track? Because there's a huge opportunity of different metrics to be used for tracking, but what do you care about?
Yeah, I think there's a few things we have right now that we are tracking. We're tracking sort of website visitors. So do we see an increase? We're tracking engagement, but it's also in our LinkedIn posts, but also engagement on the website. You opened the podcast with, hey, only 2% will fill out a contact form. This is actually something we're tracking, and I hate to report, but we are not above the 2%. So it's also an issue we have, of course. So those are the types of things that we are tracking. And so certainly over time, the visitors, the followers, the engagement, how is that actually evolving? Yeah. And then, of course, longer term, we have yet to convert a website client. We will also look at conversion. We actually had 2.5% as a goal, but that's something we would like to track as well. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's very insightful. I would like to switch gears a little bit and learn about you as a founder a little bit, building up the company. So maybe if you could sort of bring us back into, how you won the first or second client. Maybe that if you could share one of those stories. It's always very interesting for people to hear how you got something off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me. I've mentioned Jaguar Land Rover before, so maybe I use another one, but this was the first one. Let me use this one because it's a great story. When I started the company and I changed my role on LinkedIn, I had a friend reach out who said, hey, I see you're living in Amsterdam. I'm sometimes there through work. Let's meet up for beers. This was in February of this year. I'm telling this story by months because it'll illustrate just how long B2B sales cycles can be, which unfortunately is longer than anybody would like them to be. I think by the time his friend had reached out, it had been 3 weeks, and I had the first call in March of this year. We then spent, and this person was very excited, said, hey, I would love to do this. Let me find a specific use case to apply this. I have a bunch of options. She's relatively senior, so we could have done such a project in Russia, in South Africa, etc. We chose for an Anglo-Saxon or English-speaking country as our first. By the time we were up and running, it was end of July, because of course the time that you bridge between, hey, I'm excited, let's find somebody, and you actually starting requires classic change management. Leadership needs to be on board, communication emails need to be sent out, paperwork needs to be sorted, participants need to be recruited, etc., etc. App needs to be loaded. So by the time we had this, it was July, then the project ran from end of July to beginning of September, and we're currently in negotiations to see how also we can help better serve this client on a larger scale. So from meeting my friend in February or having first encounter with my client in March, the project wrapped up in September, 6 months later. So there's a 6 months B2B sales cycle for you right there.
Very good. Anything that you learned actually on managing those long cycles, like, sort of to regularly touch base or to keep the conversation going? Anything that you learned that is really key in those longer cycles?
Yes, and this is probably something I would do differently going forward. The number one thing is to involve the right stakeholders and decision makers earlier on. If I think sort of about budget, authority, needs, and time, to use an acronym in sales, it's very important to ensure that you have the right authority with also the budget power at the beginning, because they're going to appear at some point sooner or later anyway. If you can involve them at an earlier stage, you can accelerate the process much quicker. The approval, but also a continuation. If you forego this thinking, hey, it's going to be easier because it's just faster. That may be for the first few months, but then it may make things more difficult later on. So I think it's critical to get to the right people around the table, and can be in our situation also multiple people, right? It could be the sales manager, it could be a person from training or development who needs to be in, or sales ops, sales excellence, and it may also be a person just one level above, depending on budget authority. And these are the same people who need to champion the product. Any SaaS tool, any product needs to have people championing the product, especially in sales. If you talk to any salesperson, there's a statistic: the average sales organization spends $4,600 per year on tools for their salespeople. That's an average of 6.1 or something like this. These people are overwhelmed, right? And they want to be out selling and not filling out tools. So if it's not made a priority by them, by these leaders early on, you're never going to see the traction, regardless of the value that you are providing.
Very, very interesting. Maybe one last question to wrap up today's interview. I would love to learn a little bit about how you, as a founder, educate yourself further. Like, what is things that you do maybe to be a better founder today or CEO today than you were yesterday? Any sort of books, resources, podcasts? Where do you sort of, or maybe circles of other CEOs? Where do you sort of grow and learn?
Yeah, I read a book every 2 weeks. I'm pretty religious about that, and I always highlight and I type up a summary and send it to my team. It allows me to actually have the learning sink in. Plus, if I get asked, I can share those learnings. So it's just a process I have for books I read. And here, of course, this is anything from startup books, from the most iconic of lean startups to more modern ones like Sprint or whatever, to also sales books. For example, in sales, there's quite a few books. Sales hasn't evolved that much, but things like the Challenger Sale by CEB that came out quite some years ago are great. Yep. And so I think books is definitely one. Two, I seek the opinions of others. My wife is also founder and CEO, so I think it's very important to always ask others. And third, actually speaking to my users or salespeople themselves, because given that our product, let's say, is not a radically new technology, but it's an older form of communication that's been done for millennia, just applied in a digital way thanks to the tools and technology we have today. Yep. Also talking to our users of how can I get smarter around making this better or things. And then also, yes, the occasional podcasts, the newspapers, articles, etc. Also do those, but I do that sort of scanning, perusing one-offs, and then informing myself from there.
Got you. Very, very good. Thanks a lot, Martin, for sharing a little bit about Xtatio, how you guys have been sort of starting off, which types of problem you're solving. And I think it's a very, very interesting problem. I think a lot of guys selling SaaS out there can be totally relating to that issue where those emails don't get replies anymore after a while. So it's amazing. So thanks a lot for taking the time and showing us your company and your perspective on things.
Super. Thank you, Lucas.